Choosing to feed the correct wolf. Jason van der Slot lives his life to the fullest. From an early age, Jason and his family would spend their holidays driving through Africa without a GPS or booked destinations. From being stranded for 3 days surrounded by lions to waking up to the likes of hippo, elephant, hyena outside their tent. As a child, he has hiked up Andean peaks in Patagonia, steered a Russian sea vessel towards Antarctica, swum with dolphins, turtles, and whale sharks in the Indian Ocean. Jason measures his life not by the number of breaths he's taken, but the number of moments that took his breath away.
I woke up this morning with this terrible fight going on inside of me. It was a fight between these two wolves. The one was evil, he was envy, self-pity, and self-doubt. The other was good. He was happiness, humility, love, compassion, and hope. Now this same fight, it goes on inside of you, and everybody else as well. Which wolf will win? The wolf that you choose to feed. Look, life, it's not fair. It's tough. Before entering this world, nobody gets to choose the cards that they're dealt. Not even David Copperfield. I was brought into this world with cystic fibrosis. It's a life-threatening genetic lung condition which causes an overload of mucus to accumulate all over your body, and it slowly causes your organs to malfunction and fail. Predominantly, it affects your lungs and your digestive system. I'm 25 years old, and currently the average life expectancy is 37. It would have been easy for me as a young child to ask, why me? Why do I have CF, but then not my twin sister? And I never really asked this question because I felt it had no real meaning. We have a family motto that says, don't give it power. Don't feed the wrong wolf. I was 3 years old when my dad asked me to handle my sister's toy, but I didn't want to because I wanted to play with it. So I made up this excuse that I couldn't give it to him because I was too sick. My dad then, he chose to scold me, and he said that I was never allowed to use CF as an excuse again. This has been the building block to how I choose to live my life. 1 month before my 20th birthday, my parents, they let it slip that I was given a life expectancy of 10 by the doctor that diagnosed me as a baby. And I say that they let it slip because they knew of other people with CF who were so set on making it to their 21st birthday, which they did, but then they died soon after. I didn't know this, so I never set myself my own targeted life expectancies. In fact, my parents never actually even told me that CF was a life-threatening condition until I was 15 and I cultured a bacterial lung infection, which still hasn't actually left my lungs. But what they did do is they made sure that I met a man by the name of Peter, who's had a double lung transplant. He's in his 60s, and he still lives a full life. My parents, they did this so that not only did I see the light at the end of the tunnel, but the life at the end of the tunnel. In my final year of schooling, I was talking to my childhood friend, Sasha, about our goals and our ambitions for the future. And in the conversation, I told him that I'll be taking part in the Cape Epic, the toughest mountain biking race on earth. And when we completed it, it would be a world's first for cystic fibrosis. He turned to me and he said, I completely forgot you ever had cystic fibrosis. I'm not defined by CF. I'm defined by the mindset that my parents created around CF. Despite CF, I finished in the top 3% of the Argus Cycle Tour, beating 25,000 able-bodied cyclists, even with the puncture and reduced lung function. despite CF. I completed the Cape Epic, the Tour de France of mountain biking. Despite CF, my next challenge is an Everesting. Pick any hill, cycle multiple repeats until you reach the cumulated height of Everest. That's 9 vertical kilometers. 1 hill, 1 ride, no time limit, and no sleep. These accomplishments of the Cape Epic, the toughest mountain biking race on earth, the Argus, the largest participation bike race on earth, and attempting an Everesting to ascend the height of the tallest mountain on earth, it would not be possible without a choice. A choice my parents made when I was a child. A choice I made growing up. A choice I still make every single day. And I urge you to make this exact same choice. The choice of which wolf you're choosing to feed.
Jason, how wonderful to see you. I think when I invited you to come to the studio, I thought you might think that you're going to be sitting with me. But we're sitting in the new COVID-friendly studios. I'm in one studio, you're in another. Are you okay there? Everything comfortable?
Yes, no, I'm great. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's wonderful to see that we can still do these things despite extreme lockdown. And obviously, there's a reason why we're being exceptionally sensitive with you. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey. You've just completed a course called the High Impact Public Speaking, and you are becoming a public speaker. Tell us a little bit about that story of yours that everyone has to hear.
Yes, so I did the public speaking course because I wanted to share my story, and I wanted the opportunity to show people that despite the circumstances that life throws at you, you can still dream and you can still chase these dreams and succeed and achieve them. And I found that the course gave me the opportunity to regain my purpose and show people that you don't have to be a victim in life. You can be a victor of your circumstances.
You have a very special something about you. You want to share that with the audience?
I've got cystic fibrosis. It's a life-threatening genetic lung condition which causes an overload of mucus to accumulate all over your body, and it slowly causes your organs to malfunction and fail. So what this basically is that my body's full of this thick, syrupy type of mucus. So if you to think of yourself of breathing in and filling your lungs with syrup, and then you breathe out and then leaving this thick residue of syrup lining your lungs. So I'd have that in my lungs and throughout my entire body. And it affects all your organs and slowly causes them to malfunction and then eventually fail. But from the lung perspective, what happens is this thick mucus, it's like a breeding ground for bacteria, and you get these repeated reoccurring lung infections which you can't get rid of, or that takes a very long time to get rid of. And it causes scarring on your lungs, and then that scarring, it damages your lungs, so you can't use that part anymore.
I love your face. When every time you speak about the mucus, you turn it like it's an ugly thing. It's like, I've got this mucus, it's like the dreaded lurgy. You've described it to me, and I think the golden syrup analogy is a fantastic one. So you're saying that you get this sort of golden syrup, and it's quite a lot. So I've been trying to push you for a number. Is it a half a cupful? Is it a cupful? But it's a lot. Every single day, you have to dispel this phlegm or this golden syrup. How would you go about doing that?
So you can do a couple of ways. One of the ways that I prefer to do it is through exercise. So my chosen sport is cycling for a number of reasons. Is that when you're cycling, you opening up your lungs, and it allows you to get the air in, but also when you're going over rough surfaces, when you're mountain biking, it causes vibrations in your lungs, and that loosens the phlegm. And that helps you to bring it up. And also when you're cycling, you're leaning over, so it almost drains it out somewhat. Another way is physiotherapy, which usually entails inhaling antibiotics or a solution that helps make these secretions a lot thinner, more like a normal human's lungs. And you would do breathing techniques to push the air into your lower part of your lungs, and then loosen the phlegm, and you'd consciously move it with breathing techniques from your lower lobe to your middle lobe and then to your upper lobe, and then bring it up. The idea is to prevent yourself from coughing, because then there's a pressure differential, and that sucks the mucus back down. So it's quite a lengthy process, and it takes quite a bit of time and effort to concentrate and actually do it.
And Jason, you've got to do this every single day.
Yes, it's exercise or physiotherapy, but every single day is a must to help.
And there's also a vest apparently that you can wear?
Yes, so there is a vest which is only available overseas and currently not in South Africa, but this vest, it vibrates, and it does the same idea as what I try and simulate when mountain biking and cycling, is it vibrates and it loosens this thick mucus, and then allows you to more easily bring it up.
I'm going to ask you to do something very personal. You have demonstrated this to me. Could you demonstrate to the audience the process of trying to move this syrup from the lower lobes of your lung? I can't even imagine with the process to the middle lobes and then to the outside. Is that okay? Would you be all right with that?
For sure.
Fantastic.
So it's called autogenic drainage, and you take a big breath in, and you'd fill to the bottom of your lungs, and I'll show you with my hands as I'm moving where I'm putting the air while I'm breathing.
Wow, that's amazing and quite terrifying. Are you feeling now, Jason? Are you okay?
Yeah, no, all good, all good.
You all right? The breathing's still there?
Yes, just got to catch your breath.
Well, that's fantastic. So despite the fact that you've been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and the exercise that you've discovered can be part of your treatment regime, you've done a few little sort of exercise things that I think most people will sit back. The one is the Cape Epic. Now, remember, look at me. I'm not a cyclist. Tell us a little bit about the Cape Epic and how it was for you.
The Cape Epic, it's an 8-day mountain biking race throughout the Western Cape, and it's arguably the toughest mountain biking race in the world. So it's raced by your world champions, your Olympic champions. So the racing field is very competitive. You can expect to be riding anywhere between, the pros who do 5 and the backmarkers between 13 hours each day. So you spend a lot of time out cycling each day, and you do this day after day, and it's very taxing. So in terms of CF, there are quite a few challenges that make this race a lot harder for me in particular. The one of them is that when you're mountain biking, there's this fine dust that gets thrown up, much like when you're driving on a gravel road. And when breathing this dust in, it aggravates my lungs a lot. And I found that when doing races, I would finish the race of, let's say, 150 kilometers a day, and my lungs would be sore and my stomach muscles would be sore from coughing, more so than my legs. And what we had to do to get over this challenge is we got one of those blue surgical masks, and we sewed it into a buff. And I'd wear that when going through these dusty sections. So I guess you could say I've been doing this whole COVID thing for quite a while.
And the other thing is also you don't really absorb food too well.
Yes, so because of the mucus, it blocks your digestive system from getting the bile and the enzymes. So I have to take enzymes that are artificially made when I eat, but this is just a supplement. It doesn't do the full job. So throughout the epic, one of the biggest issues was just having enough calories to get through the actual event. So every half an hour, I would have a gel or a bar and just continuously eating for 8 hours while on the bike. But you must remember that 2 hours before I went on the bike, I just had a huge buffet breakfast. When I'd come back, I'd be having a lunch, and then an hour or 2 hours later, another buffet supper. And it was just a matter of literally feeding myself enough to be able to refuel my muscles and my body that I could carry on for the next day. Because there's a saying with endurance sport, you don't eat for today, you eat for tomorrow. And for me, this was even more so of an issue. So you could say I was literally on a feeding schedule. And I went through a month's worth of these artificial enzymes in a week, just as a perspective of how much I actually ate.
There's a part of it that actually sounds quite good, this sort of forced eating every 2 hours. And it's only the mask and the cycling that's put me off, and cycling next to you when you're spitting all your phlegm out all the time. You've also done the Cape Town cycle tour. And apparently the first time you did it, there was an interesting 2 characters on the cycle race.
Yes, so the first time I did the Argus, I did it with my dad on a tandem bicycle. And we dressed up as Shrek and Noddy. And I was dressed up as Noddy, being the small person, which were because of the CF and the issues with the malabsorption of food, and my dad dressed up as a larger Shrek. But it just happened that he was on the front and I was on the back. So we would see my dad coming around the corner and they'd go, "Go Shrek!" And then I'd come into view and they'd go, "And Noddy!"
Not the only time that you did it, though. You did it quite a few times, and you progressed to doing something quite remarkable.
Yes, so I've done it many times, and each time I'll try and cut my time down by a little bit. And eventually I set my eyes on doing a sub-3 Argus cycle tour, which is equivalent to running a 4-minute mile. And in terms of the actual race of the Argus, which is actually the world's biggest participation bike race, and there's about 35,000 competitors, and I finished in the top 600, so you could say the top 2.5%, even though I had a puncture, which for me means more than
So a puncture, you still end up on the top 600, and you're not a professional athlete, and you're breathing and coughing and slobbering all over. You told me such a funny stories about the other guys are terrified of riding around you.
When I'm coughing, it's a bit of a scary situation for the other riders around me, because they're always saying comments like, "Hey, if you're sick, you shouldn't be riding," or "Stop, don't spit in my direction." And it's just becoming something that I've got so used to. And I've been riding on a training ride and someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, you the guy who's always coughing."
Yeah, so an incredible feat of endurance, but something that is driving you. And if that wasn't enough, you've set yourself another crazy goal.
Yes, my next challenge is an Everesting. So I will not be climbing Mount Everest. I will be cycling repetitions of the same hill until I reach the cumulated height of Everest. And this will be done in one ride, and you're not allowed to sleep during this challenge. I'm wanting to do it and get the world record for someone with cystic fibrosis. Currently, there is someone else who did it with the help of a drug. Previously, they failed the first attempt. The second attempt with the drug, they managed to do it 2 months later. And part of this, I'm wanting to raise money to get this drug into South Africa. It's a very ambitious task, but I believe that it's something that needs to be done, and I feel it's my calling and my purpose to help others.
So the record's 17 hours. How long do you want to take?
16.9. No, I'm looking at around 15 to 16 hours if possible, but I'll take anything below 17.
Very briefly describe the course to me.
Steep.
Very steep.
So if you were to compare it to a climb in Cape Town, it would be 3 times as steep as Chappies or twice as steep as Sekebosi.
And it's about 1 kilometer long?
Yeah, so it's about 1 kilometer long, just doing repetitions, riding up, hurtling down the bottom, quickly turning around and getting up. There's not going to be much breaks in between because we'll be going for the record. So perhaps every hour or so, we're going to work out exactly the strategy where I'll stop for a couple minutes just to eat something, drink something, so I don't have to carry that food up with me back when I go up. So it's going to be very minimal time stopping.
You even said that your bike needed special gearing, otherwise you can't get up the hill.
Yes, so I've got my bike modified by friends at the Life Cycle. They have basically put The gearing of a 4x4 on a Ferrari. So it's so that I can spin at a pace where I'm not grinding that much. Well, I'll still be grinding, but at a lot less aggressive pace.
And you're hoping to do this roundabout May?
May, yes. So we're wanting to do it in May with conjunction with the Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month.
So we're busy with some big plans for you for that May trip. So keep your eyes on the press and you'll see this young man breaking a world record, cystic fibrosis, going up and down this course. Just out of interest, how many times do you have to do that 1 kilometer vertical cycle?
We haven't got the exact number, but we're looking at in between 250 to 300 times.
300 times. I might even join you for one hill. I might even see if my gearing system is working. Is there any way that we as the audience or as the listeners can actually help you in your endeavors?
Yes, so we are going to be raising money for the South African Cystic Fibrosis Association, who are currently in talks with the pharmaceutical company Vertex, and they're in talks to get this drug called Trikafta into South Africa at a reduced rate because of our economic standing. Currently, the drug, based on the standard price, would be 6 million rand per patient per year. So having a reduced fee would be life-changing and make a huge impact in people's lives. And this drug has literally allowed people to go from the transplant list to be able to live a normal life somewhat with a lung function of in the range of 70 to 80% and just have that sense of not having to breathe with oxygen. It's literally changing people's lives and allowing them to breathe and
Fantastic.
not have to have oxygen. So to help us and to fund this, the legal process and the negotiations, you can go to Give and Gain, Cycling Everest to breathe in life into cystic fibrosis lungs.
Jason, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure doing the interview with you, but you knew I was never going to let you off that easy. So I have one last question. When you were small, your parents never shared with you that there was a life expectancy on someone with cystic fibrosis. If I remember correctly, originally being born with cystic fibrosis has a life expectancy of 10. Well, you've beaten that. And you're going on well, but there still is that life expectancy, that expected mortality. Does that ever affect you? Do you ever get frightened, or what does it actually make you do? How do you feel about it?
Andre, the thing is, everybody's going to die. And it's not about waiting until there's life expectancy, but it's about living your life with the days that you have and living your life to the fullest. And life is not measured by how many breaths you take, but how many moments that take your breath away.
Oh, I love that. Moments that take your breath away. I think if there's ever been a quote that we should ascribe to you, maybe it should become your key quote. Jason, you have been an inspiration. You're an inspiration to many. Continue doing what you're doing. I'm sure we're going to see you on stages across the country. And if anybody would like to contact you, they can contact you on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at
Jason van Slot on Instagram and Jason van Slot _speaker/cyclist on Facebook.
Fantastic. Jason, bless you, and thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you, Andre. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Thanks, bud.
It's not the end of it. Wow, Jason, you are such an inspiration to me, especially. I'm not a young dude anymore. I'm an old dude now, so my days are numbered. But one of the things that I look at you and I look at that thing and I just say those moments that you look for. And so one of the things that you don't know is that on the top of my little computer screen, I have one of these. It's a little noddy. And every time I sit at my computer, I think of you and I think of your inspiration. So for me, I think that is absolutely fantastic. But for the audience, I've got an absolutely wonderful surprise for you. When Barry was trying to explain to Jason that life could be the same, he hadn't actually met somebody else with cystic fibrosis. And tonight, you heard him speak about Peter, the 60-year-old, the guy that inspired him, the guy that had a double lung transplant. Well, Peter's here. And so Peter, Terry, if you can just find Peter for me. Peter is here tonight. And I can just ask him a quick question. Whether you know it or not, you've been a huge inspiration to Jason. I've known him now for several months, And every single time he tells his story, your name comes up in it, and you have been that inspiration and to say is that there's more to life.
Yeah.
Do you have a message for young Jason and what you think of him in particular, and maybe some advice?
Jason has, thanks to his dad and his mother and what he's achieved so far, basically steered himself into the path that he needs to be in. It's a mental path. You know, physical is one thing, but as long as your head is in the right place and the way you're thinking is in the right direction, you're well set. You're 90% of the way there. It's when you start thinking that you're going to die tomorrow, or that this thing that you've been given is in charge of your life, that you're going to get yourself into trouble. The bottom line is that you are always in charge of your life. No matter what you do, the choices remain yours. So no matter how bad things get, you've always got to see yourself come through it and what you're going to be doing once you're through it. And that's the way Jason lives. That's the way his dad taught him to live.
And Peter, you have now gone through the process of cystic fibrosis. You've had a double lung transplant. I chatted with you briefly beforehand. You seem very well. How is life for you now?
It's like getting your life over again.
You were saying when you
my
go to
lung
the doctor,
function
you can't
was.
cough.
Sorry?
You were saying you can't cough anymore.
I can cough now, but right after the operation, I had to be taught how to cough again. It was crazy. From somebody who was coughing incessantly, you know, I mean, it basically wakes me up every now and then when like, for example, when Jason was doing the autogenic drainage that you asked him to do. I mean, that's something that most cystic fibrosis people have to do on a daily basis. And I was no exception. So I can remember visiting a physiotherapist and all sorts of things like that continuously, daily. And now I don't have to do any of that. One of the things that you've got to realize is that there's a shed load of medicines that you swallow and you breathe in, and goodness knows what else, when you have your original lungs. But when you trade your lungs in for new lungs or replacement lungs, the medicines don't go away. They just change. Yeah, you change one chronic condition for another. And because you've got somebody else's lungs in you, they're a very close match. They have to be. But you have an anti-rejection cocktail that you have to swallow, and it's horses for courses, you know. It's just the way what you have to do. But here am I, you know. I'm in my mid-60s now, and I'm happy to be alive. I've got a wife and son that have been with me through the whole deal, and you know, you have to have a purpose. You have to have a reason. And as long as you have a good reason and you have a good view on what you want to achieve, hey, the best thing to want to do, and that's what I applaud Jason for, is that he wants to serve. He wants to give back. He wants to help others. That's critical, because that's a never-ending story. You know, you've got the responsibility now is yours to stay well and to demonstrate how well you can be despite the issues. And I think a lot of people, you know, my mother's Scot, and she says, and she's 91 now, and she said, everybody's walking around with something. So we've all got our thing, you know.
Yeah.
We've all got to look after ourselves in some way. And
I think you've just been such an inspiration. And I think I can see that messages are just popping up, because there's a lot of people here from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and I can see the messages are popping up. So that's one thing you've done. Not only have you created an inspiration to Jason, but Jason is going forward to be an inspiration to others. And I'm so glad that you mentioned Barry and also his mom. There are key individuals in his life that have changed his thinking. And so from my point of view, and on behalf of everybody else here, to say thank you for giving us this young man, I think he's amazing. Peter, thanks so much. Bless you for coming on tonight. One of the other people who is showing the ultimate sportsmanship. And I just think I'm so amazed that he's here and he's managed to make it for us here, is the current world holder for cystic fibrosis in the Everesting attempt. And Willie Hunt, he decided he would love to be here. He's checking out his competition. He needs to see if he wants to come down to Cape Town. But Willie, thank you so much for being here. Have you got a message for Jason?
Yes. So I'm very excited. I'm the first person who did an Everesting with the help of the new drug called Trikafta. And Jason will be the first who do it without the new drug. And that would be wonderful. I keep my fingers very crossed, very tight. And I hope Jason gets the attention he deserves for it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Billy, there's a lot of people here with cystic fibrosis on the show. Would you like to just share with them the effect that Trikafta has had on your life?
So living with CF, with cystic fibrosis, is stressful, depressing, and at times scary. But since I have been taking Trikafta, life has been less complicated, more hopeful, and relaxed. It's becoming easy. And I have two small kids. And with Trikafta now, I believe I will be able to hold grandchildren in my arms later on. So, and this is such a big thing. It makes me happy and yeah, it's great. It's great.
Fantastic. You've done it twice. You did it once without the drug.
Yes.
You did it once with the drug. Any advice for young Jason?
It will be a hard day, a long, hard day. So advice, at some point, it's a big mental thing. And I don't know which tip I can give him. I think he knows everything he have to know, and he only have to do it. Stay strong and keep on and keep on and keep on.
Willie, thank you so much. It's such a privilege and such a sign of good sportsmanship, because you know, very often when you have a record, you're like, oh, don't break my record. But you've been encouraging young Jason all along. I think he's still got to do it. And we always talk, we're South Africans, so we're competitive, so we're all behind Jason, but the reality is he's still got to do it. And Billy, we were saying, and to the rest of the people in the audience, we're going to be trying doing as much of the Everesting thing on Facebook Live or Instagram Live. And so hopefully we'll be able to interview you once or twice when he's sort of 2 or 3/4 of the way through and see how he's going, and maybe have some of your input as well. So Billy, again, thank you so much, my friend. It's a real privilege. What a great sportsman you are, and we are delighted that you've got a second lease on life. The rest of you, all right. God bless you all. I hope you enjoy that. If you need to get a hold of young Jason, just speak to me, Andre at bigpositiveguy.com. And to the rest of you, I hope you have a wonderful evening. God bless.